welcome back to my channel. My name's Tim, if this is your first time watching, and today we are going to be installing a Prinsu roof rack on the 3rd gen Colorado ZR2. In order to get this going, I had to take my topper off, so I had room to work, but it should be somewhat of a simple install. We've already got the rack built, and we've got it so we can access where we need to put the bolts in, but first things first, we need to get the stripping pulled off the top and get our holes drilled. So if you guys have any questions, or if there's any company out there looking to make a half rack, because there isn't any yet, hit me up. I know a guy who's looking for a half rack for their 3rd gen Colorado ZR2. So before you get started on anything with the truck itself, my recommendation would be to put your roof rack together on a very flat surface, follow the instructions. Luckily for me, I didn't have to do that. I picked this up secondhand from my boy Downtime Lost. He already had it built, so all I had to do was take off some of the T-slot rails so I can access all the brackets. But put it together, make sure it's squared, make sure everything's tight, and then you're gonna use that to base your measurements on the roof. I believe in the instructions it states that you need to get 7 inches from the first, like the roof line here. You're gonna measure from here back 7 inches, and that's where you're gonna make your first hole on both driver and passenger side. And then you can use your rack, put it up there, mark your holes, and pull it back down to finish drilling everything out. So the tools that you're gonna need for this job is going to be a few drill bits that are 23 64ths of an inch. I highly recommend getting some that are meant for steel, because even though the roofs are kind of floppy on these 3rd gens, the part where you're going to be drilling into is actually really solid, and you will burn through some bits. I've even heard people saying that they got tired of running through these and were using masonry bits. But make sure you get the 23 64ths of an inch bits. This is a 5-pack, 6-pack of bits that I got on Amazon. You will need the 1/4 by 20 attachment for the riv nut gun, and you will need the 1/4 by 20 riv nuts themselves. You want to make sure that you get the ones that are completely round and flat, not the ones that have like the star shape to them. The star-shaped ones will split and turn on you if you over tighten it, and then you just have a hole in your roof, and now you got to drill that one out. So I recommend getting the rounded ones. They're a lot more durable. They bite in a lot better. Yeah. For your hardware that comes with it, you only need the 1 bolt, the washer, and your spacer. You do not need to double spacer or double washer, just 1 washer. I recommend having some cutting fluid. This is a tap for when you're drilling, that way you don't burn out your drill bits faster. And then some tape, that way you can mark the depth that you need. The only time you're gonna use a power tool on this is when you're drilling the holes. Once you've got your holes drilled, you do not use power tools whatsoever for putting the hardware into the holes when you're mounting the rack, because you take the chance of spinning these out, over tightening them, just the works. And then the last thing that you'll need, well, not last thing, is some sealant. I went with an Automotive sealant. That way, when I'm putting the hardware in, I can put a bead of this on, and I can put it around the rev nuts. That way I limit any leaks into my roof. And if you're not aware before you mount this, something to think about is this will void your warranty on your truck. If you get a roof leak and they see that you've got a roof rack mounted on your truck and you've got a leak in your roof, your warranty's voided. So just something to think about before you decide to install one of these. The last tools you're going to need is these pry tools. I have kept these around in my shop because I don't like throwing things away, and luckily I'm going to need both of them today, and that's going to be for the weather stripping up on the top. I've already pulled one side off, and I found that it's easier if you come on both sides and pry up. And what you'll be prying up is this plastic piece here. This is what sits inside of that weather stripping, and you're going to come in the middle on both sides and pry, and the knob connects in here, and that's what you're trying to pop off. I will put a list of everything that you need in the description of this video. That way you don't have to pause it or remember it. Just go down to the description of the video. I will have everything listed there for you. Last thing I forgot to mention, and I apologize, is should go without saying, you will need a caulking gun for your sealant, unless you buy like a squeeze tube. Other than that, this should be all that you need. If we find anything else, I'll make sure to update you along the way. Let's get started. So we're on the front driver's side. Again, you're gonna need your pry tools. You're gonna get up underneath on both sides, try to find where that little nub is, and pop it up. And if you break these, it's not that big of a deal. There's actually extras with inside the rail that aren't clipped to anything that you can use, which I think I just broke this one, so I'm not worried about it. Yep, I just broke that one. That's fine. But you'll just come along, try to find where the nub is, and then get in the center of it. There it is, here. And then I'll come in on the other side and try to just like that, just pop it up. And you'll just work your way down. Like I said, you'll do this on both sides. I don't know if you can see this part here, but there's this tiny little nub here, whereas I broke this one. But that's what it's connecting to. So you'll just have to get up in the center of that to try to pop that plastic little bracket off. And there's several of them down this way. You can see on the passenger side, I've already gotten that one off, so you can see what it looks like in the end. Oh, come on. It came off a lot easier on that driver's side, or the passenger side. And that's that. And if it comes out like this, you can still pop it off and put it back in the channel here. That's actually really easy to do. I had to do it on the passenger side. Don't throw this away. You will need this to fit in between the brackets. So for that, you will need a pair of like metal shears to cut these to length. Luckily for me, like I said, I bought this secondhand. So my buddy, Downtime Lost, gave me his old one that already cut to size. So I can just pop those ones in and keep this. If I ever decide to take my roof rack off, I can just put this one back on. So you're gonna start basically right behind the windshield here, where the metal bends, and you're gonna measure about 7 inches back, and you can use a marker or a wax pencil, whatever you've got, and you're gonna mark your location, like I said, about 7 inches, and you're gonna do that on the driver's side and passenger side, and that's where you're gonna drill your first holes. These are going to be the hardest holes out of the entire roof, is these first 4. But get these first 2 drilled, then you'll bring your rack up here to mark the rest of the holes out. Then you'll take your rack off, and then you'll be able to drill them all out and put the rib nuts in. So we got our mark there. Well, now I need to get my drill and drill bits. So I wasn't entirely sure of the depth, so I did have to look this part up, but it states that you want to drill about 1/4 to 3/8 of an inch in, and either use a drill stop, or you can do what I did and just take some masking tape, measure it out to about 1/4 of an inch, and put your tape there. That way you don't go too deep and puncture your roof liner. Put a little dab of that on there. Try to center it. If you don't have a bunch of extra batteries, I would maybe recommend using a corded drill. That way you're not limited on power or batteries. That's impressive. Yeah. Especially when you come to this and it's like, but this is solid. That's impressive. Maybe some more upper body weight. Hopefully my step stool doesn't kick out from underneath me. So 1 eternity later, it's dark out now. Not even joking. These holes take forever, and your arms are going to be very exhausted at the end of it. But finally got through. So now we're going to take our rib nut with our rivet tool, and you want to take some of your sealant. You're going to put it on the rib nut itself before you put it in, and then you're going to put a little bit of the sealant, probably a lot of it, around the hole to seal it entirely. And then the hardware also that will drill into this, you're going to put sealant on that as well, just to mitigate any leaks in your roof later in the future. The nice part about this Automotive one is it doesn't dry hard. It kind of dries more like a rubber, so it's going to allow it to like flex without breaking it, the seal that you have. So now that we got that on there, I'm gonna kind of press it down in the hole, and then don't put yourself in the face. That should be it. And now with that done, you're gonna take a bead of this and you're gonna run it around the rev nut itself, as you can see over there, to make sure it's entirely sealed. And I would put a good amount of it around it. All right, with these first two done, now we're gonna clear off the roof. We're gonna put the rack up here. We're gonna temporarily put the hardware in. We'll mark the remaining 10 holes and we'll drill those out, put the rib nuts in, and then we'll be ready to mount the roof rack. All right, so now we've got the roof rack up here and we've aligned the front and aligned it all the way to the back. So now I've just got my wax pencil here, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna mark all of the holes on both sides. That way, when I take the rack back off, I know exactly where to drill, put my rib nuts in, seal them up. We'll put the roof rack back on, tighten it down, and we'll be done. All right, so we ended up having to call it quits last night because it got way too late. We're both getting tired, getting frustrated, because these two front holes are very difficult. It took us several hours to be able to drill just these 4 holes on the driver's side and passenger side. These last ones, these last 8, took no time at all. We burned through those pretty quick, but these ones were a giant pain in the butt. So this is day 2. I'm by myself, so bear with me. We are finally at the stage where we can seal up our rivets. We're gonna put the spacers on while the sealant is still fresh. That way you get a good complete seal. And while I'm doing that, I'll show you here. I'm going to take the bolt and the hardware. So I'm going to put some of that adhesive underneath the spacer. I'm going to put the spacer down, and then I'm just going to finger tighten the bolt in there so it holds it in place. So that way it can kind of cure in place before I put the roof rack on. So I'm going to go through that process right now. Sorry, there's a fly in here. I'm going to go through that process now. I'm going to put the sealant on here, set all of my spacers, put the hardware in, let it cure for a little bit, and then we'll get the roof rack put up here and almost done. I'd say we're 75, oh my gosh, 75% of the way done. All right, so let's get after it. Don't be afraid of putting too much on there. I think more is better. Just because I really don't want to have to deal with a leak. So now that that's there, push it down, make sure I've got it touching all the way around. We'll leave that in place and let it cure for a bit. So I'm gonna knock the rest of these out. I don't want to bore you guys with that. I'll knock the rest of these out, and we'll come back for putting the roof rack on. All right, so we've got all of the hardware in. We've got them sealed. I've given them a little bit of time to cure, so when I put the roof rack on, I'm really hoping they don't move around. But now is going to be the fun part of getting the roof rack up here by myself. Should be pretty interesting. So let's get to it. All right, well, I got it up here. My other camera got too hot and went into like a protection mode. But I did get it up here. I am going to go through now. I'll show you. I've got it set up to where it's sitting on top of the bolts, roughly where I need it to be. So now I'm going to go through. I'll put a block up underneath it. I'll take all the hardware out. I'll set it back down. I'll drop the bolts back in. I'm not going to tighten them completely. I'll do that at the very end. That way I can still adjust it if I need to. But should be pretty simple now that it's up here and pretty much in line with where it needs to be. So let's get into that and get this freaking project over with. All right, so for this last part, I told you that I was gonna block it up so I could get the hardware out. So I'll show you what that looks like here. So I just have a piece of 2x4. So it's up high enough that I can get the hardware out. I'll be able to set it back down after I pull that 2x4 out, line up the holes, and then drop the bolts back in. When you get to this step, you need to make sure that you also seal the bolts that are going into it. So you're going to take the bolt out. I've already done it on this one. And you're going to put just a small bead, hopefully you can see that, of the sealant on it. So that way when it threads in, you're also sealing those threads so you don't take a chance of getting any water or moisture in there either. So make sure that you do that on every single one of the bolts as you put them in to seal it all up. So I'll get this part done and I will show you what the final product looks like. All right, so it's all bolted down. This thing is solid. It's not going anywhere. The last thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the sealant that I have and just go around and put a decent bead all the way around it, just as a backup to my backup. to ensure that I don't get any water leaking in my roof because, well, now I don't have a warranty. So I'm going to do that. I'll put the strips back um, in that gutter, and that's it. I'm done. So if you guys have any suggestions, um, anything like that about the install of this roof rack, any questions about it that I might be able to answer for you, drop a comment and I will do my best to guide you the best way that I can. I will say I watched several videos of other people trying to do this, and I don't feel like their videos were that helpful, which is why I decided to do one myself and be a little more thorough in explaining the process. So watch the video all the way through. I'll put together a list of things at the end of the video that I found that made life easier for me as far as doing this install, and hopefully you have a buddy to give you a hand. If not, plan on doing this over a weekend because it's a lot of work. Just drilling these front 4 holes is going to take you quite some time. So stay to the end of the video. I will have a list of things that helped, and if you have any questions, comments, anything like that, drop it in the video. And if you are a company watching this video that builds roof racks, we need a half rack for the 3rd gen ZR2. Just saying, because I run a topper on here and I would much rather have a half rack instead of a full rack. So when I'm out off-roading, I can still flex without worrying about hitting my topper on my roof rack. So make one, we need it. All right, guys, thank you so much for watching this video, and look forward to making the next one. All right, so we are out here in Bangs Canyon. We got the Prinsu roof rack finished up, and I've had it on for about 2 weeks now, and I wanted to follow up and just give some pointers when you go to install yours. The biggest thing is you need to make sure you set aside enough time while you do this, because drilling these front 4 holes is very time consuming. I don't know exactly how long it took us, but it was well over 4 hours just for these 4 holes. And the reason they're so difficult is right up here in your, what's called your A post, there's metal that's inside that's called boron, and it is probably the toughest, hardest metal that there is out there from my understanding. And it's really a miracle that you even drill through it. It is very, very, very durable. So with the drilling part, at the beginning of the video, I talked about how you only needed that one set of drill bit. That will be the one that you need for the overall size of the hole, but you will need multiple drill bits working up to that size. We found out the hard way that just trying to go straight for it with the largest bit took way too much time. I think I spent over 2 hours, almost 3 hours on one hole, just because I tried, using that one size bit. So step it up, start with a small bit, work your way up to that final bit, and life will be a lot easier for you. One of the next parts that I would like to touch on is when you get this put on, don't be afraid of putting too much silicone on there. You want to make sure that it's completely sealed front to back, or you'll end up like my buddy Cena, who we just had to pop his roof rack off yesterday so we could reseal it. So just put it on there, and then make sure, like, after several years of off-roading and weather and whatnot, that you just go through, double check, make sure that it's sealed so you don't get water inside the cab of your truck. And do remember that if you're going to do this install, it does void your warranty. So take that into consideration before you decide to buy one or before you decide to install it. So the last tip that I have is making sure that once it's all done, that you allow it to cure the way that whatever adhesive you buy requires you to do, because the last thing you want to do is spend all this time, all this money, all this effort to put your roof rack on and then have your silicone fail because you didn't let it cure properly. The things that I want to talk about now that I've had it on for a little while is, one, that if you're going to run a topper like this, having this wind deflector actually improved my miles per gallon. It went up by like 0.4 per gallon just because it made it more aerodynamic. So I do recommend that if you're gonna run a topper, get a full roof rack, get a half rack, do something to make you more aerodynamic. And it's also gonna keep the wind from coming up and catching in here. And it's gonna take all the wind noise away. That was the biggest complaint I had before I had this on here, was driving on the interstate. The wind would get underneath this and it was very loud and very annoying. The other thing is, I think it just completes the overall look of my truck. I think it brings it full circle. And I'm really happy with how this build's going. Which brings me to my next point. You'll see this video first. My next video that I've been getting asked about multiple times is a rig walkthrough. So stay tuned. We're recording it tonight. It will be my next video. Thanks for watching.